Brothers and sisters, welcome to this update. The Omicron variant of the COVID-19 virus has quickly spread throughout the world. The number of cases has exploded. We're saddened to report that as of Friday, January 21st, 26,813 of our brothers have now died from COVID-19. But there have been some encouraging developments. For those who are vaccinated, cases of Omicron are generally milder and have not led to hospitalization or death. For example, you may have heard reports that there has been a major outbreak of Omicron in Puerto Rico. You may also know that Puerto Rico has a very high rate of vaccination. Although 551 cases were reported among our brothers during the recent outbreak, only 3 of our brothers have died, and it is our understanding that all of them had serious underlying health issues. Even one death is too many, yet we're relieved that so few died. Our hearts go out to all who have lost loved ones. Please continue to be careful. The pandemic is not over, and we need to continue to take practical steps to protect our lives and our health. In addition to the pandemic, it has been sobering to watch recent world events unfold. We see one natural disaster after another, and we hear threats of war. The king of the north and the king of the south continue pushing one another. When we hear all these things happening in the world, it reminds us how vital it is that we keep on the watch. We need to stay awake spiritually and not doze off or get distracted. Why? Because we are living in the most critical time in human history. Jesus knew that the last days would bring challenges that would test our spiritual focus. Out of his deep love, he urged his followers, as recorded at Luke chapter 21, verses 34 through 36. But pay attention to yourselves, that your hearts never become weighed down with overeating and heavy drinking and anxieties of life, and suddenly that day be instantly upon you as a snare. For it will come upon all those dwelling on the face of the whole earth. Keep awake then, all the time making supplication, that you may succeed in escaping all these things that must occur, and in standing before the Son of Man. We constantly hear encouraging reports that you, dear brothers and sisters, are working hard to keep awake and remain busy in your service to Jehovah. You're busy in your personal ministry, writing letters, making phone calls, and looking for opportunities to share the good news informally. And many were able to auxiliary pioneer during the recent campaign. Staying busy in Jehovah's service is a protection for us, but more is required to protect our hearts. It's vital for all of us to keep awake, to be watchful of things that could pose a danger to us spiritually. What are some of these dangers? Jesus mentioned things like overeating, heavy drinking, and anxieties of life. What are some ways that these things could cause our hearts to become weighed down? First, let's talk about one common cause for anxiety: social isolation. No doubt we have never felt as isolated as we have during this pandemic. True, it has been necessary to isolate ourselves physically to prevent the spread of COVID-19. But if we're not careful, we could start to isolate ourselves in other ways. Maybe at times we feel Zoom fatigue, and we even want to isolate ourselves virtually. What's the danger? Proverbs 18 verse 1 says, "Whoever isolates himself pursues his own selfish desires. He rejects all practical wisdom." It takes effort to reach out to our brothers by telephone, by video conference, or even with an email or text message. But so often the encouragement that we receive from doing so makes the effort so worthwhile. Often we receive back more than what we may have given. Just as Jesus said at Acts 20, verse 35, there is more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. An article on jw.org entitled, How to Deal with Isolation, made an interesting point under the heading, Cultivate Friendships. Friendships benefit your mental and emotional health and are even more important when face-to-face connections are difficult. If you are confined at home, you may be able to use video conferencing or voice calls to maintain existing friendships and build new ones. We need our brothers and sisters, and they need us. To have a friend, we must be a friend. So be a friend. Could you reach out to someone this week? Perhaps you can think of a friend whom you haven't been able to talk with for some time. The joy of speaking with your friend will no doubt calm some of the anxieties in your heart. We can't wait to get back to our kingdom halls, assembly halls, to have our large regional conventions, special conventions, and even international conventions. In the meantime, we are grateful that we have other means to enjoy these programs, such as Zoom, JW Stream, and in some cases, TV and radio. Of course, most congregations are using Zoom for their meetings. Isn't it encouraging to see our brothers and sisters' faces? We appreciate being able to see them comment and see them singing from the heart. This also helps us to fight feelings of isolation. Simply turning your camera on and smiling, even a simple wave, can be such an encouragement to others. And we can make it our goal to connect early and stay longer after the meeting. We can enjoy visiting with the friends in breakout rooms. Brothers and sisters, these are some practical ways that we can fight back against feelings of isolation and the anxiety that isolation can create in our hearts. Another danger that Jesus mentioned was heavy drinking. Of course, there's nothing wrong with drinking alcohol in moderation. The Scriptures describe wine as a gift from God, designed to make the heart rejoice. But some caution is needed. Why? Remember, Jesus specifically cautioned that our hearts could become weighed down with heavy drinking. Secular reports indicate that many people have increased their alcohol consumption during the pandemic. The article, Alcohol Consumption, How Can You Stay in Control, on jw.org states, some people drink more alcohol when they feel stressed, lonely, or simply bored. Are you drinking more than you used to? If so, how can you make sure that your drinking does not get out of hand or lead to alcohol dependence? Even if a person does not get drunk, immoderate drinking can pose spiritual dangers. Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 11 says, Woe to those who get up early in the morning to drink alcohol, who linger late into the evening darkness until wine inflames them. Why these woes? Note the spiritual consequences in the second half of verse 12. They do not consider the activity of Jehovah, and they do not see the work of his hands. Immoderate drinking can weigh our hearts down and cause us to neglect spiritual things. It can cause us to slow down in the race for life, or even to stop running altogether. No wonder Jesus specifically mentioned it when discussing the need to keep awake spiritually. Why not review that article on jw.org, which features 5 tips to help us keep alcohol in its proper place? What is another potential danger to our spiritual alertness? Misuse of social media. There's been a lot of concern from governmental and medical authorities about the effect that social media is having on people's mental and emotional health. Even more important are the spiritual concerns, the content, the people, and the amount of time involved. It can be addictive. Brothers and sisters, if you decide to allow your family to use social media, please be alert. Make sure you have good association with those who promote good spiritual habits, whether on screen or off. The whiteboard animation, Be Social Network Smart, provides some good reminders on how to be balanced yet cautious when using social media. What's the final challenge we want to consider? Tests of neutrality. With so many different challenging situations in the world, and even the threat of war in some countries, we need to be sure that we are not allowing our hearts to take sides on these issues. How sad it has been to see simple public health measures like wearing masks, hand washing, physical distancing, and vaccinations become controversial, even political. Some of our brothers and sisters have been influenced by the political views of those in their community. Some have turned to the internet and have been deeply influenced by official appearing websites filled with highly political propaganda. Brothers and sisters, be careful. Just because something appears on an official-looking web page on the internet does not make it true. We must guard against the spirit of the world and remain neutral. How appropriate are Jesus' words, "Pay attention to yourselves, that your hearts never become weighed down." Let's keep focused on God's kingdom as the only solution to this world's problems. What has helped some families to keep awake? Let's see as we watch the following video.
During the pandemic, it was definitely difficult to keep a good routine, and it was very easy to form bad habits.
During isolation, I spent more time in front of the computer, and it disturbed my sleep pattern.
I had to make an adjustment because with bad habits, they're easy to form and hard to break. So I did a little bit of a replacement therapy, I call it, where you switch from mindless TV watching to something that's a little bit more profitable, which is our own TV station, JW Broadcasting.
As I spent a lot of time watching television, I heard a lot of negative information about vaccination. I was frightened.
I felt pressure from the media, and I decided not to get vaccinated for some time. We often ask Jehovah for guidance. The governing body updates were timely and helped us to make the right decisions.
When the pandemic first started, I had a lot of free time on my hands, so I was just on social media all the time or on technology all the time.
Family worship was an excellent opportunity for us to be able to talk about social media, to really get Jehovah's thinking on it and how we can balance it while not eliminating it completely so that we controlled it and it didn't control us.
It was a slow process, but eventually I deleted my social media and began setting time limits for other apps that would take a lot of my time.
Our family decided to spend more time together. We played music and danced together. We played board games and went for walks together in the forest. That helped us to reduce the time we used for social media.
I decided to keep my schedule busy. So I started a few new hobbies like knitting and gardening.
I saw a lot of benefit in staying close to the congregation through Zoom. Even though Zoom is not easy for me, being able to spend time with people who are going through the same thing as I was really beneficial. We could all talk about what we were dealing with and encourage each other as well.
We arranged online Bible-based games through Zoom.
I found it nice to use Zoom to connect with the congregation with events that were planned by those in our hall. Some of them were interviews with those who have been in our hall for a long time. So it was nice to hear those experiences and be able to draw closer to them.
During the pandemic, I would reach out to others, either a phone call or a little card or a text message or just dropping something off at someone's door. It helped me to feel closer to my brothers and sisters too.
The governing body updates were an absolute lifeline. They were something that really helped to focus all of our activity. As parents, it helped us to have clear direction, so we felt like we were guided through the whole pandemic and encouraged at the same time.
I also have been able to see Jehovah answer my personal prayers even more so, and just how he is holding all of us up during this difficult time, because I don't think any of us could get through this pandemic without him.
We are proud of these families for keeping awake to spiritual dangers. Did you notice how they counteracted social isolation? They have reached out to others regularly. They use video conferencing to stay close to their congregations and dear friends. Did you notice how they addressed their use of social media? They talked about it as a family and decided either to reduce the time spent or eliminate it completely. They have also increased the time they spent together, including enjoyable outdoor activities. And how did they handle tests of neutrality? They prayed to Jehovah and trusted the information provided by the faithful and discreet slave in making their own personal decisions. Very soon, Jehovah's day will come upon all the earth. It's vital that we keep awake. Now's not the time to become spiritually drowsy or distracted. Remember Jesus' words at Luke 21:36. Keep awake then, all the time making supplication, that you may succeed in escaping all these things that must occur and in standing before the Son of Man. By earnestly supplicating Jehovah and applying the fine direction we are receiving, we will be successful. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.